Actually the very first time I met Sam, we had our giant educator symposium down in Fort Lauderdale, well, Boca. Same thing. It's all Florida. But anyways, Sam had really long hair, and I think didn't you win chopsticks? We had all these like little competitions between educators.
No,
Oh,
everybody
are you kidding me?
Oh,
Well, that's not fair.
Yeah, I know somebody.
So I don't know if you guys know our thing with chopsticks, but how many of you guys know about our creative director for smoothing, Mr. Martino Cartier? He's, the loudest one of the bunch. That's impressive coming from me, the mouth of the South. So, but Chopsticks over here got our chopsticks, which we use a lot of times in place of clips, because we feel like it makes the hair so beautiful when it's all sectioned off with chopsticks, and it also kind of sets you apart from the way other hairdressers do it. And by the way, my number one theory on life as a hairdresser is do things differently than other people. Even if you're achieving the same goals, the only way to make yourself irreplaceable as a hairdresser, period across the board, is to do things just a little bit differently, right? And be really good at what you do, right? So, chopsticks, I don't even remember what happened, but we all went out to dinner, and she had chopsticks sticking out from every side of her head in every angle. She had this like crazy updo. I was like, who is this girl? And she was making friends with everyone. So from that point on, that was like 5 years ago, from that point on we all call her Chopsticks. Feel free to call her that as well.
Yeah. Forever.
But what she's going to be doing over here, she's going to be working on her natural keratin smoothing treatment. And she's going to explain to you what's been done and what hasn't been done quite yet. And I'm going to actually let her talk about her experiences with when she started first using our smoothing treatment.
Okay, so I'll start with her. So I do have both sides. I did just one side for you. Let's see. But this is her natural side. So she's actually it's a lot frizzier than this. It didn't come out as frizzy as it normally does, but she has a lot of trouble.
How many years now have you been getting natural keratin smoothing treatments? I know last time I was here you were our model, so it's been at least 2 years. So just to give you a little background, she has been getting natural keratin smoothing treatments for 2 years. This is just, it's faded completely off, but do you hear what she just said? She just said it didn't really blow dry as frizzy as it normally does. This is something that happens with clients, and those of you that have been doing our treatments for a long time, you guys may have noticed this. Do you ever get to that point, like after you've been doing it for like a year or two, and the client will be like, I don't know if it's working anymore. Let me tell you something. Best thing in the whole wide world that I ever learned from any Keratin Complex hairdresser was they said, take a before picture before you ever do a keratin treatment on your client, period. Keep it on file, because what's going to happen is they're going to get so used to having their hair be so easy, and they get so used to their hair being a lot smoother, right? And so then they get a keratin treatment, and it's still beautiful 3 months later. In their mind, that's just the way their hair is at this point, because they've been getting it for a year or two, and they're just like, my hair's fabulous, what? Okay? The problem is they forget how bad it was to start with. That was my case. That actually happened with me, because my hair is like a natural, I have like Amazon woman hair. Up until a month ago, it was about 6 inches longer, and it's giant without a treatment. Before my first one, I should say. Now, my hair's still curly, and I still get a little frizz if I let my treatment wear out, but for the most part, it stays pretty smooth most of the time. So I kind of forget what my hair looked like before. And I think that's a really telling thing that you were like, it's not really as frizzy as it used to be. And it isn't, because I remember you last year, and her hair was this big. Go ahead, sorry.
No, you're fine. So we did it on one side so you guys can see. There's a little difference. I know you guys, some of you have done it. In the past, we've kind of oversaturated. So that's a lot of people have oversaturated, and we don't need to. Our hair's only going to accept the most keratin possible at once. So to oversaturate, it's just going to it's going to be harder on you guys. It's going to take longer for you to blow dry. It's going to be thick and greasy and flaky because there's way too much on there. So what I'm going to show you today is how to do it without oversaturating and making your life a lot easier. And the client, in that 72 hours that they have to wait, they're happier also. Because they're like, it was awesome. I didn't feel like, and they'll want to use the full treatment.
That's the number one problem that we have found out there in the field for people that have been using it for a while, is we find that people, more often than not, are way oversaturating. And like she said before, you can go ahead and start applying. I'm just going to touch on what you were just saying. With her hair, with most clients' hair, if you oversaturate, number one, like she said, it's going to take you way longer to blow dry. okay? That's just going to make your life a lot harder. Number two, that client's going to be pissed off at you for 3 days because their hair is going to be a lot heavier and greasier than necessary, right? Because when this is done properly, the hair is not greasy at all. They can go those 3 days. They still can have body, they can still have life to the hair. It doesn't need to be flat and greasy. But the problem is that we're all colorists, right? And we were taught our entire career, like, make sure you saturate the hair so there's no breaks or holidays in the color, right? This is a different case. You gotta bear in mind that sometimes the less you use, the better. Let's touch on how much product do you use maximum for every head of hair? Like, what's the max amount? 2 ounces. That is the maximum amount. If you are using more than 2 ounces, which a 2 ounce, this was from last night.
That was from last night.
That's about that much product. Okay, where my fingers are? Now, think about that. That's barely any product. Can we just run some numbers really quickly while you're doing that? See how she uses her chopstick? So much cuter than clips. Okay. Quick point. How many ounces are in a liter? 32. Oh, you're gonna go and get all technical on me. Let's just say 32. 32-ounce bottle, okay? How much does that cost? Sales reps? $350. Okay, so you spend $350 and you buy a 32-ounce bottle of our natural keratin smoothing treatment, okay? So let's just pretend for fun we're using the maximum amount for every single application. Let's say we're using 2 ounces on every head of hair, which is insane because as far as I can see, I would say over 60% of the people in here, you would use a half an ounce to a full ounce. No more than that, okay? So if we use 2 ounces per head and there's a 16 or a 32-ounce bottle, how many applications are in every bottle? 16? Okay. Now, every area is going to be a little bit different what they charge for this process. In Savannah, Georgia, I have heard everything was, the lowest I've heard is $200, okay? That's the lowest I've heard in my area. The highest I have heard is $500, okay? For me personally, a $200 due is going to be your length. Do you mind standing up for me? Do you feel like I'm picking on people? Because I can barely see her hair? That's a $200 job for me. Now, am I going to use 2 ounces on her? Absolutely not. Nowhere even close to that, right? Like half an ounce max. Like, and I mean, that's probably overdoing it a little bit. So let's pretend, just for fun, that every single client's getting the maximum amount application and we're charging the minimum amount. So even for a head of like mine, okay? Let's just pretend I'm charging 200. There's 16 applications. What's 16 times $200? What? Yell it out. I love that. That was awesome. Hairdressers answered math questions. You guys rule. Okay, so 32 ounces, or $3,200. What's 3,200 minus 350? Let's see how quick this is. This is great. You guys are awesome. You don't even have your calculators out. I'm impressed because I was like hoping somebody else knew it. But say it again. Say it again.
2,850.
That's how much profit you have in every single 32-ounce bottle of natural keratin smoothing treatment. And that's if you use the minimum amount or the maximum amount of product and you charge the minimum amount. What if I'm charging, I don't know, normally my price is like anywhere between $350 to $475 for a long head of hair, and I'm only using 2 ounces. What if I'm using only a quarter of an ounce or half an ounce for half the bottle? How many applications is that? So literally what I'm telling you right now is that the minimum amount of profit that you're going to make per $350 bottle is, say it one more time really loud, $28.50. That's the minimum amount of profit you're going to make in one bottle. Now, this is going to be really fun because we're going to go into the Express Blowout in a second. That one's like a mind blower. That completely changed things for me. So one thing I want to kind of go over here is I want you to look at what Sam's doing here. Can all y'all see that okay? Do you see in some areas how it still almost looks like it's like kind of dry? Yeah. Here's the thing. By the time she gets to the top of that section, what she did in the very beginning at the bottom should be almost completely dry. Talk about making your life a lot easier, right? Here's the other thing. What's the #1 complaint that you get from clients that get a natural keratin smoothing treatment? What? I heard it. The smell? The fumes, right? Okay. What about the eyes? Let me tell you how to solve that. because that's not a problem with the product. What they are feeling, that's benzoquino. Benzoquino is used on pretzels to make them shiny. We're not talking about a harmful product here, okay? Otherwise, you pretzel lovers are screwed, okay? I personally like pretzels. They try to give me those on the plane. I'm like, ooh, that's something weird about crunches. Oh my God. Anyway, so with benzoquino is an accelerant and a driver. It's what helps drive our keratin proteins into the cortex of the hair. Now, the reason that we drive them into the cortex instead of gluing them to the outside is why. That doesn't make any sense. It's why. Go ahead, yell it out. What? What?
So it will stay.
So it will stay. Number two, where are the holes? They're in the cortex, right? Listen, there are a lot of products out there that use a certain F word, which we're going to say really loud in a second, because we all know we're thinking it. This certain F word, what it's used for is not the traditional use for what? Formaldehyde. The reason that a lot of products have that in there is because it glues it like wood glue to the outside of the hair. Now, if you glue keratin proteins to the outside of the hair, what's going to happen after 3 shampoos? It's going to fall off. What's the point? You charge a bunch of money for something that lasts for 3 to 4 shampoos? Doesn't make any sense, right? I don't want something that's going to wash right back out of the hair. When you're using this particular product, the beauty of it is that it's driving into the cortex, where the actual problem is. We're filling those holes, okay? I love you. We've been handing out the timers to the models so we don't have to keep track of it. It's funny watching them like walk around and take smoke breaks with their timer. But, you know, with our natural keratin smoothing treatment, we don't have to use products like formaldehyde because we're not trying to glue anything to the hair. We're driving it in. That's how we use our benzoquino. Now, benzoquino can be an eye irritant if it is misused. Now, this is how you solve that. Really simple and easy. Number one, aerate your product. Shake it up in the back room before your client even gets there. Pour it in your bowl. Set it to the side. Let it sit while you clarify them. Okay? After you clarify them, you're going to take them back to the chair or back to your chair, and you're going to blow dry them. Right? You're going to blow dry 100%. So that product's still sitting there, calming down after being shaken up. Now it's ready to apply. By the time you apply it, you're no longer going to have those issues. The other thing, number two, don't over-apply the product. When you over-apply the product, it creates more of a disturbance in the benzoquino. It's not going to hurt the hair, it's not going to hurt the client, it's not going to hurt anybody, it's just going to be kind of annoying. Right? Make sense? Third thing, when you're blow drying, we have a new protocol for this, okay? And this is something that if you took a class 4 to 5 years ago, you wouldn't have known. Before, we did 4 sections, now we do 6, okay? So when you're actually applying it, you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? You're blow drying roughly with cool to medium temperature air. You're not holding it on a brush or anything, you're just really roughly drying it. You get it 100% dry, and then you go through and you iron it, right? So I'm going to let Sam talk about what she just did, talk about, you know, why she's capping it and all that fun stuff.
Okay. So I applied it to make sure when you do your sections about an inch section, you apply it, you don't have to apply it on the root. You just apply it, and then you drop the next section, you marry that section into the next section. So at that time, sometimes you don't have to add more keratin, like she said. That's oversaturating. So it might be the 3rd section that you drop that you're going to add that keratin to your hair. So when you're completely done, like she said, it might be dry down here. It's okay, don't add more. And then by the time you get to the top, you did mag it for 30 minutes. Everybody gets back for 30 minutes.
Down in the South, so just to give you a little tidbit about the South. So we don't like to call it a processing cap because this isn't really going through a process, it's just absorbing. So we were trying to come up with what we wanted to call it. And like a processing cap, we can't use that because we're not processing anything. An absorption cap, who wants to say that? So in the South we call it a marinating cap.
It's just marinating for 30 minutes. So everybody, regardless of their texture or who they are, if their hair is blonde, brown, purple, pink, whatever it is, it's going to be all 30 minutes. After the 30 minutes, then you're going to section again in that 6th section. Now, I personally section way more than that, just because I find that it's a lot faster. I'll section like 13 sections, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you know, all the way 13, and I use my chopsticks. It's my signature. So, and then you blow dry that 100%, and then you go into the flat iron. Remember the flat iron, though? You we were using way too high of a planner, way too high. And we were actually damaging what we just made beautiful. So lower your temperature. I always say you get the 3 S's, shine, slip, and static. Not static, but yeah, it'll puff. So when you're doing your passes, you're going to get that nice shine. When you get that shine, you know you're there. If you don't, you bump your temperature about 10 degrees. So start at like 350, 360, you know, and then work your way that way. Instead of 450 and gone. You know, you don't want to do that.
That's actually kind of a funny thing because you always hear that with like the hairdressers. We get a lot of calls in corporate, and like it's the hairdressers, and they're like, it's really weird. Like their hair was really damaged, and I put this product in there, and I went over it with a 450-degree iron 7 to 10 times. It's weird. Their ends are kind of singed. How long have you been doing hair again? But see, when it comes down to it, this is why we're starting back. Right.
Yes,
That's the truth talk right there. This is why we don't have mirrors around the shampoo bowl, and this is why we start in the back, right? So you don't see the hairdressers behind you going, right? So, but like she would, I know, and it's, you know, it's funny, we can find any excuse at the shampoo bowl, like when something goes wrong, we'll be like, I'm gonna put this glaze on you just to give you a little bit of shine, just to color that cuticle right on up. Really, their hair is canary yellow because you forgot you accidentally took off the foils a little too soon, and now you're screwed. But you're just like, I am gonna ash the mess out of this hair right now. But, you know, what she's saying is correct. You know, really starting at a lower temperature, and after 7 to 10 passes, you can actually physically see when the cuticle's closed, right? When you start seeing that shine. Have you ever noticed, like, when you do the tapping at the root and you go over it 10 times, or however many times you've cycled through that area of the head, when you go over it, that area that you tap at the root is like almost a totally different color than the ends? It's because that cuticle is now completely sealed in around potholes that are filled, giving it a what surface? A solid, smooth surface. So what's going to happen? You're going to get